So this is my first video about my journey with the ketogenic diet. And I promise to be quick. And I'm going to break them up into small sections so that if there's a specific topic that you would like to know about, then you can kind of skip ahead. I'll try to label them that way. So the reason I started this diet was because, and it's not really a diet, they call it a way of life, or because it just makes it a little easier to not say that you're on a diet. You've just kind of changed your way of eating. So I started this journey back at the end of January when my husband and I changed our insurance, and we could get this Super Saver healthy discount if our blood pressure was low enough and our weight was low enough and our measurements were low enough. So my husband and I jumped in the car and we went to the grocery store to take our blood pressure, and I sat down and I put my hand in the cuff, not worried at all, because historically my blood pressure has always been really low. Matter of fact, after the birth of my third child, the nurse took my blood pressure and said, "Is your blood pressure always this low?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she was like, "Okay, it's kind of weird." And I said, "Yeah, it is, I guess." But anyway, I wasn't worried. So I sat down and it took my blood pressure, and lo and behold, it was in the upper range of the moderate, which for me meant high, because mine had always been so super low that for the upper moderate range was, for me, it was high. And I just looked at my husband and said, "What in the world?" And so I said, "Maybe this machine is broken," which is ridiculous. And he sat down and put his arm in it, and his was the same way. "Well," I said, "oh, we've had coffee, like it's no big deal. I'm sure it's just because we've been drinking coffee. Let's try it again later." So I went to work, and when I was at work, I happened to be at the grocery store, and I sat down and took it again, and it was still just as high. And this was hours later. So on the advice of a friend, I stopped by a fire station on the way home, and there was a fireman outside on this phone with his girlfriend, so I had to interrupt him. And I said, "I'm so sorry, can you take my blood pressure?" And he was kind of laughing. He was like, "Yeah, come on in, and I sat down, and he's like, "Well, what do you want your blood pressure to be?" "We'll just say it is whatever you want it to be." I said, "Well, I really just need you to see what it is." So he's laughing, kind of joking, and he puts my arm in the cuff and he starts to take my blood pressure, and then all of a sudden his face just falls. And he goes, "Wow, this is kind of high." And another fireman heard him and kind of walked out, kind of stuck his head around to see what was going on. And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of." And he goes, "Okay, well, you might, want to get that checked." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, thanks so much." So I went home and researched blood pressure remedies, and the first thing I found was that weight is a huge contributor to high blood pressure. I had been steadily gaining weight since the birth of my last son. When I had my last child, I lost my birth weight, but then about a year later just started putting it back on, and have been steadily gaining weight for the past, he's 10 years old. I was exercising every day. Matter of fact, in January, I was doing between 5 and 7 one-hour classes at the Y every single week. And these were like Y cross classes and spin classes and really high, good classes. I was eating fairly healthy, I thought, but my weight I was about 5 pounds away from what I had weighed when I came home from the hospital with all of my babies. And I think one of the most discouraging things was that when I would, tell people that I wanted to lose weight, most of the time, everybody's like, "Well, you don't really look like you need to lose weight." But evidently I just hit it really well, because according to the government, the website that tells you how much you're supposed to weigh, I was overweight. I wasn't obese, but I was overweight. So I had known for a while that I needed to make a change. I knew that I was not treating food the way I needed to treat food. I was not treating food as something that nourished me and gave me energy. I was using it for a whole lot of other things. And so I had just felt this gnawing in my stomach, just kind of in my spirit, in my mind, knowing that I needed to make some changes. But honestly, I justified it. I'm a busy mom. I work a couple of part-time jobs. I homeschool. I do all these things. Cupcakes are what, my treat. And I just used food in all of these different ways that were not healthy for me. And it was starting to catch up with me, not only with my weight, but with my blood pressure and probably other things too, although I didn't do any further testing at that time. So this was really my wake-up call. I knew I was having some hormonal issues that can also be related to weight, and I had been researching thyroid conditions because a lot of the things that I was dealing with also pointed back to a thyroid issue. So in the next video, I will talk about how I found keto and why I chose keto over paleo, whole foods, the 30, Whole Foods 30, or any other sort of diet. So anyway, that is a little bit of why I had to make this change. And so, yeah, I'll start the next video. There'll be another video. I'm terrible at this.